You know exactly what you need to say. You have the recipient selected, but your thumbs completely freeze. You are drowning in a crisis, yet physically unable to hit send. It is a strange paradox. Humans are an apex social species. We survived predators and ice ages by sticking together. Yet when we face acute distress today, our first instinct is often to actively resist our primary mechanism for connection. Take a recent case study from a Reddit support community. A user described executing a flawless physical routine, eating right, staying active, and staying in shape. But psychologically, they were waking up to vivid, reoccurring nightmares and crippling self-hatred. They were isolating themselves, terrified to admit they were struggling. We condition people to do this through the myth of self-reliance. Society pushes a narrative that an achievement only holds value if you clawed your way there in a total vacuum. If someone hands you a ladder, the climb somehow doesn't count. Add gendered expectations to the mix, and the wall gets even higher. The rigid cultural mandate for masculine stoicism, the idea that men must remain in quiet control at all times, makes expressing basic emotion feel like a catastrophic failure. When we treat this isolation as a form of strength, we block the only release valve we have. This creates a feedback loop where manageable stress is trapped and allowed to accumulate, eventually pushing a person toward unhelpful coping mechanisms and physical exhaustion. To understand why our internal distress signals fail to reach the people who care about us, we have to look at the actual mechanics of interpersonal communication. It starts with a cognitive bias called the illusion of transparency. Because our internal pain feels incredibly loud to us, our brains assume it is obvious to every external observer. We think we are screaming for help when we are barely whispering. Look at the encoding phase on the left. If you encode a vague hint, the receiver gets ambiguous information. As this message travels, it hits noise. This represents the internal friction, anxiety, and shame that scrambles your SOS before it reaches the listener. When your peer fails to decipher that scrambled signal, they don't respond. And because of the illusion of transparency, you incorrectly assume their silence means they simply do not care. This feeds directly into the burden fallacy. We convince ourselves that our needs are an active inconvenience to our friends and family, so we go quiet to protect them. Behavioral research suggests we are fundamentally miscalculating how others react. In multiple studies, people who participate in acts of kindness report a significant boost in their own personal well-being. The very act of providing support triggers a measurable pro-social reward in the brain. Withholding your struggles doesn't protect anyone. It actively starves your relationships of the vulnerability required to build trust and connection. The friction spikes even higher in professional environments. When your livelihood is on the line, exposing a gap in your knowledge feels like a direct threat to your career. Notice the downward trajectory here. This represents dependent help-seeking, asking someone to immediately fix a problem for you, lowering your perceived value. But look at the alternative path, autonomous help-seeking. This is soliciting specific guidance to achieve independent mastery. Managers and peers process these two requests entirely differently. When you ask for knowledge instead of a rescue, they see an active drive to improve. Workplace data backs this up. Employees who seek autonomous help receive higher performance ratings. They are consistently viewed by leadership as more competent and highly independent. Exposing a temporary knowledge gap to acquire a permanent skill is a calculated strategic advantage. To rewrite our behavior, we have to look at the research. Scholars like Brené Brown have spent decades proving that vulnerability is a calculated act of courage. It is a necessary tool for maintaining a growth mindset. When you are ready to reach out, use the SMART framework. Tell the person exactly what you need, explain why you need it, and give them the specific steps they can take to support you. You also have to strip away the apologies. Fight the urge to add "no worries if not" to the end of your texts. That language actively dilutes your boundaries and signals to the receiver that they can ignore the request. Tailor your language to the stakes. If you're at the office, ask to borrow their brain for a 10-minute gut check. If you are in a personal crisis, clear the ambiguity completely. Say, "I am having a hard time right now, and I need an assist." The friction leading up to that text will be intense, but the moment you press send, you will experience an immediate physical release of tension. The problem is suddenly no longer yours to carry alone. Solving the immediate crisis is only the first-order effect. Every request reinforces the social glue that keeps us tethered to a group, building a safety net that is ready before the next disaster hits.